Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
It's easy to find flooring online, but imagining those floors on your floor? A bit trickier. So Lumber Liquidators made Picture It, which adds our floors to a photo of your space. Just point, snap, and choose a floor. It's great if you're looking for new floors. Also, still fun if you're not. Try Picture It, only at llflooring.com. These are the floors homes are built on. Get free samples of your favorite floors sent to your home. Visit llflooring.com to order today.
This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth, for competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty, for the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. My guest is Charles Butler. I've had him on a few times. He's a very bright, black political commentator. He's conservative. And we're going to talk about some of the pressing issues that are facing the American people today. But the biggest issue is that the American people have been left defenseless unless they rise up themselves. I've been saying this in my weekly podcast. I've been stressing it. Now is the time to try men's souls. Now is not the time for summer patriots or sunshine soldiers. We have to rise up. Our Declaration of Independence, which was signed on July 4th, 1776, in my birthplace of Philadelphia, the birthplace of liberty, says at the outset, and I paraphrase, when in the course of human events, the sovereign, the rulers, no longer represent the American people, we have a right, under the laws of nature and nature's God, to alter or abolish that government and to form a new government by and for the people with equal rights for everybody in pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. We are at that point yet again. 244, maybe close to 245 years since that document was signed. It rings truer today than it ever rung before. The American people, the colonialists back in 1776, faced a king who wanted to tax us to death, take our guns away from us, stole our legal system, and took it back to the court of St. James in England. And that's what caused the colonies to say, I've had enough. I can't take it anymore. We need to form a new nation. 3 weeks ago, in Washington, D.C., after President Trump gave a speech where he didn't incite violence, where he said people should go over to the Capitol peacefully to protest and to urge Congress to do its job, to send issues of election fraud back to the states so a real investigation could be done, the people entered the Capitol building. That Capitol building belongs to we the people. And the fact is that the great majority of people that entered that Capitol building did so peacefully. They were let in by the Capitol Police. That's the truth, not the nonsense and the BS you hear on all cable news networks and everywhere else. Yes, there were some bad apples. There were some people that did create problems and did want to destroy property, and people died in the process. That was not intentional by the most part for the American people. But the people got to the point, like the colonies did, where they realized that the sovereign was totally corrupt, all three branches of government, and they were ready to rubber stamp the fraudulent election of the Manchurian candidate, Joseph Biden, and the evil witch, Kamala Harris, who were ready to open the gates to the barbarians, the ultra-leftists, who were designed and committed to turning the country into a socialist, communist gulag. And that's what we've seen in the last few weeks since Biden was inaugurated as president, sitting there during inauguration with his son, Hunter Biden, who had laundered millions of dollars into the accounts of the Biden family, Biden enriching himself, becoming a millionaire because he got kickbacks, owning several houses, wearing $10,000 suits, basically the Beau Brummel of Washington, D.C. It's just one small part of it. Became the Manchurian candidate because that money was laundered in primarily from communist China, the same communist China that released a bioweapon which has destroyed much of this country and much of the world. And of course, the sad irony is, the tragic irony is that these same communist Chinese, which own our current so-called president, because I don't recognize him as our president, I'm sorry, I don't. If they had been in charge in Washington, D.C. that day, as they did in 1991 at Tiananmen Square, when peaceful protesters in Beijing, mostly students, walked through the streets with a mock-up statue of our Statue of Liberty wanting freedom and were murdered, 10,000 of them, these butchers of Beijing are the same people which own lock, stock, and barrel Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris. And that's where we are today. But take this into consideration, too. President Trump went out with a whimper. He was being threatened with another impeachment, with indictment by a Biden Justice Department, by a rabid district attorney in New York City that's been investigating his tax matters and corporations, where his family and himself are at risk. He has gone out with a whimper. And while there was some talk of him creating a new political party, because the Republican Party is dead, the Republican Party is corrupt. It's not socialist, it's not communist, but it's corrupt. And we saw that the majority leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, was very happy to throw President Trump under the bus and throw his lot with Biden. The same thing was true with Kevin McCarthy, the minority leader of the Republican Party in the House of Representatives, who condemned President Trump for inciting violence in the nation's capital, which the president did not do. But just yesterday, the president, after there was some talk of forming a new political party, threw in the towel. He met with Kevin McCarthy at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach. They made nicey nice. I guess they were engaged in French kissing or something to that effect, figuratively speaking, and they pledged to work with each other. And what did the president pledge to do? To try to elect a Republican House of Representatives in 2 years. Well, let me tell you something. That Republican House of Representatives is worthless. It's worth nothing. The Republican Senate, which is now history, that was worthless. It was worth nothing. Even the one achievement that Mitch McConnell talked about, that he got 300 judges, Trump judges appointed. Read my book, read my lips. It takes a revolution. I've been in front of 8 of them. They're worthless. They have no courage. And we can see how worthless they were because they wouldn't even stand up for their own president in the challenge to the fraudulent election, which brought the Manchurian candidate and the evil witch into power, leaving the barbarians coming through the gates, the leftists, the radical Muslims, the radical Marxians of the Jewish left, the radical gays, lesbians, transgenders, the radical atheists, the radical blacks, all of them Most of the people in these groups are good people, but the radicals were let through the door to destroy this country and to dismantle it. And we can see with 20-some executive orders just in the first week and a half that the country has already been brought to the edge of extinction. And everything that the President Trump did has now been reversed. This is why we are now in a revolutionary state. And when I wrote my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, I suggested peaceful and legal means to bring about a new country, a new government. And I stand by that. But you have to remember that what happened at the Capitol 3 weeks ago, Wednesday, this was the result of the people saying, I can't take it anymore. I've seen that all the criminals in Washington and the state capitals are getting off scot-free. I see that I have no rights, that big tech, social media, every aspect of American society is not allowing me to even speak the truth as what I feel is right about this country. They saw that American society, the dominant society that has thrown its lot with Biden and Harris and others, is acting like the German industrialists and intelligentsia in the days leading up to World War II when they backed Adolf Hitler and then kept him in power, having committed the worst atrocity in the history of mankind, the Holocaust. And some of these industrialists, like Deutsche Bank, which not coincidentally tried to finance Clinton's first house that they wanted to buy in Chappaqua, which I killed at Judicial Watch, Deutsche Bank paid for the concentration camps, financed the concentration camps, which sent 6 million people to their deaths in ovens and gas chambers. Big tech has become the equivalent of Deutsche Bank. And sports leagues in this country and all of the institutions, either because they're ideologically akin to Biden, Harris, and the radical left, or because they want to go with a winner that will scratch their backs and make them more money, have now banded together to destroy this country and to squeeze out any dissent, any opposition to what's going on. And Biden and Harris are now in control of the Justice Department and FBI. The FBI is out terrorizing the countryside with this clown Christopher Wray, who is simply the butt boy of whoever is in power. They're sending agents out, making people turn over their cell phones who were there that Wednesday with the president. And if you don't give it to us, we're going to get a warrant on you, and they're suggesting you could be indicted, trying to squash out dissent. And you have troops in the nation's capital as a warning that people should not rise up. But yes, we will rise up. And I give you a way to do that peacefully and legally in my book, It Takes a Revolution, which you can get at Amazon.com, all the major booksellers, and at freedomwatchusa.org. I'll be right back with the second segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Yes, these are the times that try men's and women's souls.
Dangerous.
Don't here use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now, what am I suggesting in It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, which you can get at Amazon.com and all the major booksellers and at freedomwatchusa.org? What am I suggesting we do? Let's start with citizens' grand juries. As I've said many, many, many times, but I want you to take this and take it to the bank, is that we, the American people, own the grand jury system. Justice Scalia wrote that in a decision, United States versus Williams in 1992. We need to reestablish our system of justice because we don't have judges and we don't have lawyers and we don't have a Justice Department and FBI that will do it. We need to hold people like Joe Biden and his son Hunter and his family members accountable to the rule of law. We need to hold Comey, McCabe, Clapper, Brennan, Bruce Orr, the Clintons, the Obamas, and yes, again, the Bidens accountable to the rule of law. Last year, I commissioned a citizens grand jury. You can see what we did. There's a video of it at freedomwatchusa.org. It was not a vigilante operation. It was done in a legal way, and we indicted Robert Mueller for attempting to suborn perjury from my client Jerome Corsi to implicate the president in crimes. Mueller will be tried once COVID-19 subsides and we can get together in a courtroom and try him. We hope to get a conviction. If we get a conviction, we'll sentence him, and we'll mete out the sentence peacefully and legally. We even have the right of citizens' arrests, and we'll try to do that peacefully and legally as well. And you can read about that historically in my book, It Takes a Revolution. This is a scholarly book. It just doesn't throw stuff out and say, okay, let's do it. I justify what I'm suggesting we do. But in addition to that, I'm calling for a Third Continental Congress in Philadelphia during Memorial Day of this year, which is around May 31st. It'll be for 2 days, and we'll meet. And we will discuss patriots, experts, people from all walks of life, from all states of this country, how we form a new government by and for the people, just as it says in the Declaration of Independence, how we will nominate a president, how we will set up elections for a Congress, how we will come up with a new system to get Supreme Court justices that aren't bought and paid for, that aren't a bunch of political hacks, which is what they are. And you can see that how they threw President Trump under the bus. His own justices, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Coney Barrett. These are the establishment people. They like the status quo. They're secure. They're making good money. Some of them are multimillionaires, like Biden became a multimillionaire, being just simply a congressman and later a senator. We will form a new nation, just like Charles de Gaulle did during World War II when the Nazis took over France. He ran the real French government out of London. We will do what our founding fathers did. And right now, we're in worse shape than they were. King George was greedy, and he wanted control. But King George III was not a socialist. King George III was not a communist. King George III was not a radical Muslim. King George III was not a Marxian Jew of the left, okay? And I'm Jewish myself, so you can't accuse me, because most Jewish people are not that way, and that's why I'm concerned that the activities of the Jewish left, which are behind most of this, are going to create more anti-Semitism in this country and around the world. King George III was not a radical feminist. He was not a radical gay, lesbian, or transgender. He was not a radical atheist. And that's what we've got in control of this country today. Face reality. This is why the country is being destroyed, frankly, in a matter of days. It's already been taken down to its knees with these dictatorial executive orders, which are reminiscent of King George III, but even worse. So we must rise up, and we must form a new government by and for the people, as is our right under the laws of nature and nature's God, as it says in our Declaration of Independence. We must protect our law enforcement, the good law enforcement that will protect us from these savages that now can roam the streets with the rubber stamp and the blessing of Biden and Harris. You think things were bad last year? You can see what's going on in Portland and Seattle now. And just a few months ago, these radical leftists were on the lawns of people in Beverly Hills with T-shirts, "Eat the rich, kill the rich." They didn't just want to kill the rich, they wanted to kill all of us. So that's my rallying cry. I'm going to be right back with Charles Butler. He's a very brave man. I want you to listen to what he has to say. And we'll finish this thing up with the Vertus section of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. But we are now in a revolution. And in my book, It Takes a Revolution, I give you peaceful and legal ways that we can save this country. I'll be right back with Charles Butler. Until then, go to freedomwatchusa.org or the other group I formed with Sheriff Arpaio, americasheriff.org, and sign up to help save this country.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I want to discuss the state of the country, the sorry state of the country, after 20-some executive orders undoing everything that President Trump accomplished in the last 4 years, with a great American, a patriot, a brave black American. He doesn't call himself an African American. He calls himself an American. And I want to get his take. He's been on before. His name is Charles Butler. He says it truly. He believes in what he says. He has a good sense of humor. We need a little sense of humor these days because, frankly, if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. And he's a fellow patriot who believes in reforming this country peacefully and legally. Charles, welcome to Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. I want to get your take on these 20-some executive orders that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris put to effect just in the last week and a half, acting as if they're King George III, as if they are a monarchy, voicing this on the American people, deconstructing everything President Trump did, and sending this country into a tailspin. And already the stock market, you can see, has become very volatile. They're starting to get the drift. But this country is heading down a path, and already is in a path, of socialism and communist rule. Charles, take it away, because I want to hear what you have to say, and I want American people to hear it from a truly brave black American.
Well, thank you, Larry, for that great introduction. I just wanted to say that we're we're at a tipping point. And I think everyone agrees to that. You keep hearing that. We're at a tipping point. You talked about 27 executive orders. I was doing my research for my show this morning, and it said 40. He has signed 40 executive orders. I remember Biden sitting at his desk earlier this week, and he said, I don't even know what I'm signing. I mean, this guy is not all there. I mean, they talk in his ear, and he says, salute the Marine. I mean, this guy, they're talking in his ear. So someone says, salute the Marine. He says, salute the Marine, out loud. And people don't get it. I mean, the American people, I am so angry about this president putting people out of work and then telling us that all you got to do is go get another job. There are no other jobs. Trump created jobs and turned this country around. Barack Obama and Joe Biden got $787 billion from the Congress for shovel-ready jobs. They squandered that money to 143 companies. Those guys took the money, put a large sum of money in their pockets, walked away with millions, and filed for bankruptcy. That's not hyperbole. That's not speculation. That's not conspiracy. It's a fact. Just go do your homework. Now we hear the same thing. Oh, we're going to take your jobs today, and 5 years from now, you'll have great green jobs paying six figures with the union. That's a lie. That's a lie. Yogi Berra said it perfectly. It's deja vu all over again.
Charles, I think what they do with Biden, I think he must rest the entire day. They jack him up with adrenaline or steroids or something. They bring him out for a few minutes, like you said, sign here. And then he moves on, he goes back and he rests again and comes out the next day. I think that's what he's doing. And God knows what he's doing inside the White House. Maybe he's counting all the money that he laundered through Hunter and deciding what $10,000 suit an Italian suit tie is going to wear next. Of course, he gets a nice allowance right now from being our so-called president. But there's no humor in this in reality. We can laugh about it. But we've got a Manchurian candidate in the White House as this country is being destroyed by Chi-Com-19. That's what we call it right now. I actually heard Mark Stein call it that the other day. I think that's a good name for it. And it's getting worse because the virus is mutating. Now he admits that he can't do much more than he was criticizing Trump for doing. And the country is on the verge, frankly, I think, of going down for the count. But the thing that really bothers me the most... I think,
excuse my inappropriateness, but even Stevie Wonder could see that Donald Trump was doing everything that he was advised to do. even more than he was advised to do. Here's a man who cut through all the red tape and produced a vaccine, a decent vaccine, maybe not the best vaccine, but we would have been waiting another 3 or 4 years because Joe Biden, because he's part of the swamp, because he hasn't done anything in his life but sit in the Senate and collect a government check every 2 weeks, tell us that, we have to rely on the science. We have to let the CDC and the FDA do what they do. This is but the American people, this is what we have to look at, Larry, and I look at this very closely. We could talk about the election being stolen, but there were a lot of people who voted for this guy, obviously, to even make it this close. And that's the scary part. I mean, you go from abundance and people talking about, well, Trump doesn't talk right. He doesn't sound presidential. I bet you those same people will be crying for Donald Trump to come back this time next year.
Well, that may be. And I talked about this in the lead-in. I'm not sure Donald Trump is inclined to come back next year because just yesterday he threw his lot in with the Republican Party again. He had a glimmer of hope when he said, well, I'm going to form a Patriot Party. That was leaked out of his inner circle. But now they're going back to the same failed, corrupt Republican Party run by not just clowns, frankly, but by criminals, such as Mitch McConnell, who took money from the communist Chinese through his lovely wife, Elaine Chao, who is tied in with the Chinese Politburo through her family. These are the people that are running our government. And that's why the American people now need to rise up and do it for themselves. We don't have a political messiah. We thank President Trump for what he did. And he did a lot of good, for sure. And we can see that being undone in relief right now as to what we're now facing. And let me just point out a few other things. You're pointing out throwing people out of work with Keystone Pipeline, Biden and Harris. But he rejoined an arms treaty with Russia, where Russia already has weapons that we were developing to try to counter. They have hypersonic weapons that can hit this country in 6 minutes from the Soviet Union with nuclear arms. China has more advanced weapons than we have. He tied our hand behind our back. Now he's cozying up to Iran. He gave money back to the Palestinians. He opened up relations, and money's pumping in through the United Nations and taxpayer money from the United States into these radical groups like Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon. We're going to have terrorist attacks in the future because he's let the guard down. And that's what concerns me on top of everything else, is that our national security has been compromised. But yet, there are 7,000 troops in Washington today, more than in Afghanistan, to protect his fat behind and Kamala Harris's fat behind. And you know what? He doesn't even trust those troops because he knows they don't like him. They don't think he should be there. And that's why they have them, in barracks, off campus, because they don't even trust that. So this is the state of the nation, Charles. And the president just threw in the towel to a bankrupt Republican Party. And we, the people, now must rise up.
Well, I think it's always on us to rise up and to govern. I think the closest thing that we have, though, to saving the republic and saving this country from fascism is those of us that are Trumpers. I know they can say what they want about the black vote, but I would accurately count the black vote at anywhere from 20 to 25% voted for Donald Trump. I know people who support Trump because of what he's done for the country. And what people really don't understand is despite the racism, despite the inequities that black people face in this country, they're still probably one of the most patriotic ethnic groups in this country and always have been. We fought in every war that this country's had. We've given our blood. I'm a vet. I faced blatant racism in Meridian, Mississippi, where I was the only black officer on base in 1977. I faced blatant racism in the U.S. Navy. And I still, like my father, unfortunately, from World War II, never told me about the indignities that he experienced just because he was black. And so when I hear Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson talking about we are not a racist country, well, the only reason that I've had a lot of issues in my life was because of the color of my skin. You can call it what you want. You call it bias. You can call it racism. Doesn't make any difference. But I'm telling you right now there is a strong component of so-called minorities, blacks, Latinos, and Asians, and who support our white brothers in making this a great country again and fighting the liberal agenda.
Well, that's very well said. And I made that point earlier, too, is that most black people are really good people. They're not the radicals out there right now that they see hurting and looting and whatever. And that's true for every other group, too. But these radicals are getting together to take the country down. From my own background, the Jewish left is perhaps the most frightening of all. They're the ones that brought us communism through Marx and Trotsky, George Soros, the rest. But these are not most Jewish people. These are not most Jewish people. Yeah, they're manipulating the rest. They're the puppeteer in many ways.
Yep.
So, and they're destroying Israel too. They're self-hating Jews that are pushing Biden to throw Israel under the bus, the home of Jesus and our Father. And this is where we are today. So we need to tell the truth, and that's why I love you, Charles, because you tell the truth. Okay, honestly, you tell it with passion, and we need to get the people educated. They're not educated. And that's why so many people voted for Harris and Biden, because they were just tired, a lot of them, of listening to Trump's shtick anymore. That's a Yiddish word, shtick. Because although he did a lot of good things, his style turned some people off. And then couple that with the massive fraud, and he lost.
And, someone should have told him that this is not a reality show. He's a politician. And the thing about Trump, as Stephen Moore related to me and to my audience, he said Donald Trump is the opposite of a career politician. He's the nicest guy in private, and he's the most vicious guy in public. He said totally 180 out. I'm going to tell you from personal experience, Joe Biden is a real a-hole. Most of those politicians are real a-holes in private. They think they're above the law. They speak to themselves in the third person, the senator, the congressman. I mean, who are you? Hey, you Bob and Joe and Carol, and Elizabeth. The senator said, so here we are. With a real American. I mean, here's a guy who, in my opinion, took a step down to become the president of the United States. As I tell people all the time, Donald Trump had his own 757 flying around the world. He didn't have to go out and lease one when he was campaigning, and he still has his own 757. But I cannot count a time when we had a businessman come from business into the presidency. There are very few. George Washington, of course. George Washington was a plantation owner. He was a businessman. They can call him a slave holding, call him whatever. That was the business, and that was the economy, and that was the industry of America. Boom, done. Was he vicious, malicious? No. He was making money. He was about the capitalist system. And that depended on his labor force, which happened to be his slaves. But moving along, Donald Trump is one of the few presidents we've ever had who had a business background. It wasn't a career politician.
Well, and he told it like it is, Charles. I remember when he came down the escalator at Trump Tower. I was in Washington, D.C. I was there for a court hearing. I was in the hotel. I turned it on. And he says, first thing, he says, I know the way this thing works. He says, I bribed them all. They worked for me. Doesn't matter who they are. But now I'm worth $8 billion. Now I'm going to do something for the American people. Then he did it. And you know what? People like Biden are the people that are bribed too. So Biden isn't just somebody who spent time doing nothing. He was collecting money. How did the guy wind up a millionaire after 47 years as a congressman and senator? How does he have several houses? This is what's going on in Washington, D.C. It's Sodom and Gomorrah all over again. It's the money changers at the temple. It's everything. And that's why I say, and I want you to be there, we're going to have a third Continental Congress in Philadelphia, Memorial Day. We're going to figure out if we have to alter or abolish this government and form a new government by and for the people and make some changes to our Constitution that need to be made. The Founding Fathers were enlightened, but they weren't God, and they made some mistakes. And life tenure for judges is one of them. So thank you, Charles, for everything you do. God bless you. I'm going to have you on again. You're my partner here, brother. And we're going to save this country.
before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
The verdict, ladies and gentlemen, the event, as I call it, at the Capitol 3 weeks ago Wednesday, was not a bunch of criminals. There were some criminals there for sure, but they were ordinary Americans. They couldn't take it anymore. They saw the rank corruption in all three branches of government, and particularly the judicial branch. That's why in my book, It Takes a Revolution, tongue in cheek, I say, first to the guillotines for the federal judges. And I detail my experience as a lawyer for going on 44 years in the trenches of our legal system. Because without a judiciary and a legal system that will protect the American people, the only alternative is what happened at the Capitol. And even that was not intended to be violent. That was just simply a manifestation of the state of affairs where the people said, seeing a fraudulent election, that I have to rise up. I can't take it anymore. And that's why it's so important that we do implement ways to wage a peaceful and legal revolution with citizens' grand juries, with third continental congresses, with creating a new government by and for the people. If the people who are currently running our so-called government wish to see the light and to reform themselves and to stop worshiping at the altar of money and power, they can join us. But we're going to be in control now. You had your chance. You brought this country to its knees. You brought us Biden and Harris. You brought us the radical left. You brought us the dismantling of this country and the march towards socialism and communism. You brought us a godless society. That's what you want. Worship government. Do not worship the Father and his Son. You brought us millions and millions of children being killed in the womb with abortion. These people have no conscience. Frankly, they're killers. And this is what we're dealing with here. I think we've all gone through this in our families. Our family members, which we disagree with, some of them are not even talking to each other anymore because there's a divide in this country. There are people that believe in Judeo-Christian values, and there are people who believe and worship the devil. And frankly, the people that are in charge of this country today, particularly Biden and Harris and this administration, are devil worshipers because they are not following the strictures of our Ten Commandments. They're not following the strictures of the Talmud, which were the regulations that put it into effect with the ancient Hebrews. They're not following even the law as they wrote. And you can see during the last election, worthless judges appointed by not just Clinton and Obama, but also Trump himself, stabbed him in the back, stabbed the American people in the back. And it's what I've been saying. It's what I've been experiencing for my 43 years as a lawyer. And I've had it too. And that's why I wrote the book, because the people need to know that they have no legal system. They have no Justice Department to protect them. We're left exposed. And the president, former president, Donald Trump, in my view, he's still our president, but he's thrown in the towel too. And we're all out there for ourselves. And that's why we must rise up, we the American people. That's why I formed a group with Sheriff Joe Arpaio, America's Sheriff, to protect our law enforcement officers who've been trying to protect us from these radical leftists. Go to americassheriff.org with 2 S's in the middle and join up and support that as well. freedomwatchusa.org. If you can find some other public interest group that you can help that does more than just send petitions out with direct mail saying, sign this petition. 99% of the time these groups don't even send the petitions to anybody. They just pocket the money. But we at Freedom Watch actually do things. We bring hard-hitting cases. We're going to be commissioning a citizens grand jury in the next month to seek the indictment of Joe Biden and his son Hunter and his family members for laundering millions of dollars from communist China, Russia, and the Ukraine. Because without a system of justice, without holding the guilty accountable, then we have complete anarchy in this country. And that's exactly what the radical left wants. They want to divide and conquer, and they've already done it. They're in control of this country. You can go out to your country clubs You can play tennis, you can play golf, you can go to opera, you can go to whatever you want, but it's all going to be gone in short order unless we rise up. And that's the verdict today. Get out and read my book and read the Declaration of Independence and get to work. Get up off the couch, turn off Sean Hannity at Fox News, the purveyors of false hope and mistruths, and reach the facts of life and assist me and others in saving this country. God bless you. God bless America. God save America. God helps those that help themselves. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klink.
Progressive presents an interview with your upstairs neighbor.
My name's Barry. I live right above you. I don't host parties. I host after parties. They're like parties, only louder and nobody goes home. You can see right here I ripped out all the carpeting because it was holding me back with my pogo stick. Man's got a pogo. Oh, I'm a prankster. I'll grease up a soda can and then when somebody grabs it, boom!
Progressive can't save you from your upstairs neighbor, but we can save you money when you bundle renters and auto insurance with us. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Bundle discount not available in all states or situations.
Hey, we get it. You don't want to be hearing a Progressive commercial right now, so let us tell you something you do want to hear. You are powerful. You're a warrior who bathes in your enemy's tears. Then you step out of that refreshing tear bath and into a bathrobe that somehow looks good on you. Yeah, you can pull off a robe. There. Don't you feel better? You'll also feel better when you save money for driving safely with Snapshot from Progressive. Savings you can use to buy more robes. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Snapshot not available in California, North Carolina, or from all agents.
Mi raza bonita de Las Vegas, recuerde que ya puede comprar en línea. Visítanos en bonitamarques.com, donde encontrará todos nuestros productos de carnicería, frutas y verduras, panadería, tortillería y taquería. ¡Ay, lo más importante! Nuestras grandes ofertas.
Chile pasilla, 3 libras por $1. Manzana verde, 4 libras por $1. Cebolla blanca, 4 libras por $1.
Lo esperamos en La Bonita. ¡Guau! ¡Guau!